Welcome back. I'd like to spend a little time today taking a look at one of our custom indicators. In particular, we have three lines on the chart over here. The blue line represents the housing index, the red line represents an inflation index, and the green line is a growth index. Now, on the left-hand side, we see the definition for each one of these indices. The housing index is actually made up of a combination of the different monthly economic numbers to include the home price index, existing home sales, sales price, active listings, construction spending, and residential construction. The inflation index is made up of the consumer price index, the personal consumption index, and the PPI. And the growth index is made up of retail sales, industrial production, capacity utilization, non-farm payrolls, durable goods, business inventories, and manufacturing inventories. Now, essentially, the way these indices are calculated is we take a look back at the 12 prior periods, assigning each report a rank based on if it's the highest, the lowest, or somewhere in the middle of the prior 12 reports. Now, taking a look on the left side of the chart, this goes back to 2005, and particularly in 2007, 2008, we saw obviously a major downturn, financial crisis, and that coincided with a downturn in the housing, inflation, and growth index. However, more recently in 2015, for example, a slight downturn was reflected with only the inflation index, the red line, really moving very sharply to the downside. Notice in particular the housing index, the blue line, did not take such a big turn to the downside as the other two indices did. More recently, in 2019, 2020, we saw sharp moves down in the growth index and the inflation index. But then again, the housing index again did not suffer such a dramatic downturn. And now we see the housing index, in part as a result of very high inflations, moving very much to the upside, in addition to the growth and inflation indexes. Now, moving forward, we can classify any future downturns or really kind of define them by which indices are moving lower. For example, if the inflation index and the growth index move down, that could reflect a slight downturn or a slight recessionary period within our economy. However, if we see the blue line, the housing index, which tends to be a slower moving market, also move sharply to the downside as it did in 2008, then that may reflect a much deeper move to the downside in our overall macroeconomics. Hope this has been helpful. We'll see you again soon.